to round 2 of the ITU Tour. We're in Honolulu, Hawaii, where the surf's up and the sun is hot as we prepare for the second big event of the season, an ITU Continental Cup that will also decide the fate of 2 Americans in their pursuit of Athens glory. Just a few weeks ago, the world's top triathletes were competing across the Pacific in Ishigaki, Japan, an event that has become a mainstay on the ITU Tour. And it was a newcomer to the world scene who took the race by storm, taking the first World Cup victory of her young career.
We had some really intense weeks leading into that, and had to cram a bit of training into a few weeks, and then race Ishigaki, and it went well, so feeling quite good at the moment.
Another athlete who had a breakthrough race in Ishigaki was Olympic gold medalist Brigitte McMahon. Struggling with form for the past 3 years, McMahon found herself back in the running as she focuses on defending her title in August.
I have to say it's been a long time since I felt like I was really in shape. And so that was like the feeling that I was looking for so long, and now finally that it happened, it just made me feel like, hey, I have it again, so I just need to really put it all in place and perform.
Coming into Honolulu, all eyes are on the American team as they battle for a spot on the start line in Athens. All of the top U.S. athletes sat out of the first round in Ishigaki in order to prepare for this event, the first of 3 major qualifiers for the American team.
Been training for this one for quite a while now, pretty much all winter and all spring. So I'm excited about it, and I'm here to hopefully take care of business. It's a big race for the U.S. men and women.
Barb Lindquist, Laura Reback, and Sheila Taormina are teammates who have long held top positions within the ITU World Rankings, and frequently they have worked together through the opening phases of the race. But today they face off against each other in a battle for top spot and a spot on the start line in Athens.
Winning this weekend would be amazing because I would then be able to just focus on Athens and not have to worry about the next couple races. I'll still go to Worlds and still taper for it and want to win World Championships and do well at our 3rd race in Washington. But, I'd definitely be racing a lot more relaxed.
A win wouldn't be important at all. It would be a relief, but important means, that I'm placing all my emotional, desires or my importance, how I view life on this race, and so it's not important one bit to me, but sure would be fun. I'm going to be going for it.
So heading into Honolulu, it's the American women against each other, with several top internationals mixing things up, including the winner of the last event in Ishigaki, Maxine Sear, and fellow Australian Liz Blashford. I now throw it to Barry Shepley, who joins me for color commentary here today.
A very small field, but a lot running on the line today with the Americans trying to get that spot for Athens.
Well, it's not a big field here, as we saw from that start list. Full of American athletes, all of them racing head-to-head against one another primarily, but there are some top internationals into this field, in particular Maxine Sear and Liz Blashford from Australia. And remember, Maxine Sear, the young Australian, has already qualified for her national Olympic team, so she's very relaxed heading into this race.
Christine, this is the kind of course that the swimmers can really get away. It's been very wavy out there, a little bit of undercurrent, and if you get 3 or 4 athletes to break away on this very hilly course, the rest of the athletes can be in big trouble. The 2 Americans that we thought would take it out very quick, Barb Lindquist, Sheila Taormina, are working extremely hard right now trying to get away. Laura Reback and Joanna Zagar are not far behind.
Well, one of the things the organizers plan for at this race here in Honolulu is to make it as similar as possible to the Olympic course in Athens. Has a very difficult, wavy ocean swim, same as in Athens, a very hilly, difficult, windy bike course. The athletes will also be facing that in Athens, and then a hot, flat, fast run course. So these athletes preparing for the Olympic Games will be competing over a very similar course when they get there. Definitely good to practice it early.
Well, Sheila Taormina really pushing the pace, and she is such an experienced athlete. She'll be able to use it today.
Early in the swim, there were no surprises as the top 3 American women dominated the opening stage of the race.
Looking back now, you can see big gap already happening, though, about 20-plus seconds back to Susan Williams. She really is going to have to force the pace because that lead group of 4 really are working well together. Laura Reback very well positioned in there, and one of the athletes swimming particularly well right now, Dr. Joanna Zagar.
With choppy water conditions, the better swimmers in the field were at a huge advantage, and that meant the top 3 American women were easily making their mark on the opening stage. And as we head into transition, the quartet of Lindquist, Taormina, Reback, and Zeiger had a commanding lead over the rest of the field.
In her traditional role, Barb Lindquist out of the water first, Taormina just behind, Laura Reback and Joanna Zeiger. It's 4 Americans now, 1, 2, 3, 4 out of the water, and that small group of 4 will work very well on the bike.
They certainly will. These 2 athletes, Taormina and Lindquist in particular, very commonly work well together on the bike. They're brilliant cyclists. The other 2 women will have their work cut out for them. And here is that chase pack. Susan Williams in there, Liz Blatchford, and Julie Swale, who is actually a former water polo player, so obviously showing those swim skills here today.
Well, Swale was an Olympian, and she did a phenomenal job of helping get a medal for the United States in the Sydney Olympic Games in water polo, and almost overnight transferred into the sport of triathlon and did extremely well.
Well, just into transition there in the blue suit, Maxine Sear from Australia, a little further back than we're used to seeing her. Remember, she won the last event in Ishigaki. Perhaps an indication we'd heard before the race. She wasn't feeling well heading into the race this morning. Definitely brave of her to try to get in there anyway, but we'll watch to see how she goes. Here, our lead group, though, getting those shoes on. Brigitte McMahon, the Olympic champion, just entering transition. She has some work to do on the bike.
One of the other internationals just out of the water right now, Evelyn Williamson, and right there, number 13, Jessie Stensland from US, putting on the helmet and heading out. The pressure on these athletes immense because there's only one spot for them to qualify to represent the US in Athens, so they know they're going to have an absolute hot day.
Well, so far, the 2 women looking hottest on the course, Barb Lindquist and Sheila Taormina, just tucked in behind. That is Laura Reback. And here we see confirmation of those standings coming out of the water. No surprise, as we said, the 2 American women leading, Lindquist and Taormina, tucked in behind, very well positioned, Laura Reback and Joanna Zeiger. So things are looking promising for the top 4 American women as they all set their sights on the Olympic flame in August and a potential trip to Athens. A beautiful overhead shot of the course here in Honolulu with Diamond Head in the background. Taking a quick look back at the transition, the top 2 Americans heading out onto the bike, Barb Lindquist and Sheila Taormina. Laura Reback also into that group. Those are the top 3 ranked American women. They are also the top 3 ranked women in the world. On the screen right now, looking at Laura Reback, she's currently ranked 2nd in the world. And what we noticed so far, we're only a couple of kilometers into the bike, Joanna Zeiger, who came out of the water 4th, has already been dropped from this lead pack. We don't know for sure if she's had some technical difficulty or perhaps just isn't feeling well today. There you see Laura Reback moving up in the field. Sheila Taormina currently leading, and further back now sitting in 4th, Susan Williams, and she is a formidable force on the bike.
Well, she does particularly well on very, very hilly courses. Corner Brook last year, she got a bronze medal. It's respected as maybe the toughest course on the circuit. Susan Williams really loves to power the bike. The harder it is, the better that she does relatively. And you can take a look back here. Dr. Joanna Zeiger looks like she's starting to be dropped, and we would not have anticipated. That woman was at the last Olympic Games representing the Americans, one of only 3 athletes to represent U.S. at the Olympic Games. And here we now come up to the really tough climb on this course. It's only about 500 meters, but it is extremely steep, and you can see right now the 2 top swimmers, Sheila Taormina, Barb Lindquist, look like they're starting to pull away from Laura Reback, and that is a bad position for Reback to be in. She does not want to get dropped from that group, because if she can stay in there, she's one of the best runners in the sport. She increases her chances of doing well today, but getting dropped, she's going to likely fall back into the chase pack behind.
And you really see how Reback is struggling to stay in touch with these 2 women out front. Almost seems to be struggling with her gears a little bit, looking down at the bike, just not moving up that hill the way the other women are. We're at Kilauea. This is what they're calling the killer climb. There are 2 significant climbs on every lap. That is the toughest. It's about 500 meters long, but very, very steep. We're told an 18% grade on that hill, and already look at the distance Laura Reback has lost to these 2 leaders.
Right there in the blue, Liz Blatchford, the winner of last year's Gamagori race, starting to pull away, and Susan Williams going with her.
And we can't forget Julie Swale, the water polo player, just taking up the sport, doing very well. But there is Zeiger, really seems to be struggling there today. And here, those leaders, and look at behind them, clear pavement. They have distinctly dropped Laura Reback at this point, and they are flying down. This is the downhill section of the course. And here we see them just coming up the long straightaway before they take a sharp hairpin turn and they pass through the transition area on the completion of lap 1. In the distance, Laura Reback really struggling, desperate to stay in touch, but you can already see the athletes behind her, Susan Williams and Liz Blatchford, starting to make up ground.
29-year-old Laura Reback races best when she's in that lead group. She was able to do that in New Zealand. She had her silver medal run. Fantastic performance for her. Today, she looks like she's not going to be able to pedal with these two women, and they are doing extremely well. Right there, Laura, I anticipate, is going to fall back to that group of 3 that now are only about 10 seconds behind.
Well, and she has to start making that decision at this point in the race. Does she fight it alone? It's an extremely windy course and difficult for an athlete to ride alone. Or does she drop back and perhaps get some help working in a group? But these 3 athletes, we'll see what Laura does, but I can tell you Susan Williams is an athlete who is not going to be prepared to sit back on her laurels. She's an extremely strong cyclist and will push as hard as she can throughout this bike.
Laura Reback right now in a really tough position. I know she's frustrated out there. Her bike doesn't seem to be responding the way she wants it to. Technical problems, part of the sport, but these two women are very fine-tuned today. Their equipment looks like it's really going well. Barb Lindquist in the gray one-piece suit, blue up there was Sheila Taramina, and you can see right now Laura Reback is looking over her shoulder, frustrated because when your equipment is not on time, particularly on a race that's so critical, and right now she is working very, very hard, and she knows that the pack behind her are just a few seconds. Susan Williams is really riding extremely well.
Well, this is not what Laura Reback wanted for her day today. Early on in the race, we had Lindquist, Taramina, and Reback up there in the lead group, and arguably the best female racers in the USA and in the world, that they are ranked at the top 3 of the world right now. And here we see Reback being passed by Susan Williams, Liz Blatchford, and the newcomer, Julie Swale. So really Reback's bike at this point not going well.
Sheila Taramina, Barb Lindquist, absolutely powerful. They've had many, many years in the swimming pool where they built up that endurance in their early careers. Then they got into triathlon into their late 20s and early 30s, and they're some of the dominant athletes in the world.
Well, here is that chase pack looking not quite as smooth heading up this hill. Laura Reback now back into that group and also struggling up the hill. Now here's Susan Williams in the red, white, and blue coming up, and Liz Blatchford alongside. And you see those athletes really seeming to push ahead while Laura continues to struggle. She's down on the seat looking at those gears continuously. It just seems like that bike is not firing the way she wants it to.
Well, you could see such a difference in Susan Williams. Her wheels were coming completely straight up on a straight line. Laura Reback starting to zig back and forth. That's a lot of wasted energy. And here we're back to the leaders, and they're coming down that hill in excess of about 35 miles an hour, really going very quickly. Confidence in each other's lines. They really now have ridden so many races together. They have a great confidence that nobody's going to do something silly and take the other down. That's the strength of having the confidence in each other.
Looking ahead, here are our leaders, Barb Lindquist and Sheila Taramina, so consistent out there. They're completing each lap in about 13:30. They know there's some women behind them, Laura Reback, for instance, who are stronger runners. And now looking down the field, that's Joanna Zeiger, Barry. She is really, really struggling in this race today.
Well, these two athletes are not struggling up that hill, and it's almost taken the legs out of every other athlete in the field, but they are finely tuned, and Zegar looks like her day is over. Right now, she's let the rest of that pack go, and she looks like she's finding a place to pull over to end the day.
Well, looking ahead, it is a trio now that chases down Lindquist and Taramina. Laura Reback appears to have been dropped, and what an amazing bike race for the newcomer, Julie Swale. She's just switched to triathlon, a former water polo player, really holding her own here today. Looking ahead, though, these two women definitely dictating this race and dictating the pace here, and there is Laura Reback, really continuing to struggle on this bike course. She had such a strong season in 2003. This cannot be good for her confidence. By lap 4 of the women's bike, Barb Lindquist and Sheila Taramina had the lead well in hand and continued to hold steady as world number 2 Laura Reback slipped further and further behind, struggling on the hills and losing precious seconds on every lap. Liz Blatchford and Susan Williams were having a different ride altogether and were making up time on the leaders. As one of the strongest cyclists on tour, it was no surprise that Williams was leading the charge against the duo out front, but coming into transition 2, it was Lindquist and Taramina with the race seemingly wrapped up.
The two athletes athletes that dominated the swim today now have dominated the bike. Taramina getting ready to head out onto the start of the run course, and it is going to be very, very hot. First out, Taramina. Lindquist just seconds behind, and a spot to Athens on the line.
Well, that is where the cooperative effort between those two women will end. Now, each woman for herself heading out onto the run course, and just coming into transition, Williams and Liz Blatchford, and back on that hill, Laura Reback, looking painful heading up that last steep climb. She's now about 5 minutes down on the leaders. Not a good sign for Reback. As we see our leaders heading out, we see those two chasers coming in. They know that Williams in particular will be gunning for that American team spot.
Well, Susan Williams heading off, trying to get that final spot, but in that blue bathing suit just ahead of her, Liz Blatchford's in a terrific position because there is no pressure on her. This is not her big day. She's here from Australia going after the prize money, of course, and the international points, but she can afford to blow up. There's nothing lost for her. And right there, Sheila Taramina leading out. Lindquist just on her backside, and about 42 to 43 seconds behind will be the duel of Susan Williams and Liz Blatchford.
Well, one thing we have to start thinking about at this point now is whether Barb Lindquist will handle the heat. She's had so much difficulty in the past. If you remember back in 2000 at the American team trials, it was Lindquist who bonked. She was so close to the finish, so close to an Olympic berth. Here, though, looking in transition, that transition is so important. Sheila Taramina is blistering fast, gets those shoes on and out well ahead of Lindquist. Lindquist, though, taking the time to grab some ice or some water. She's going to put it down her top. It's so important to Lindquist that she stays cool.
Well, she realizes that she's had problems in the past. There's that ice going in. She's worked with physiologists and medical doctors to make sure that she maximized her body's temperature. And now Lindquist taking the lead. She has really leaned out over the last couple of years. If you looked at footage of her back 3 or 4 years ago when she came through, she was much, much broader in the shoulders. Now she really looks like a runner.
Well, here comes the fifth athlete into the transition area, Julie Swale from the USA, and we cannot say enough about this woman. She's only been racing as a competitive triathlete for just over a year. She's a water polo player. She was a silver medalist at the Sydney Olympic Games on the American water polo team, so far showing us that she can also race in the sport of triathlon. We're well into lap 1, and Barb Lindquist insists the heat is not going to be a problem. She's been training it all winter down in Australia, just getting some hydration in there, and you have to say she looks pretty comfortable. But down the field, Susan Williams and Liz Blatchford are also looking comfortable. Williams in particular has been working very hard on her run. The person who appears to be suffering most at this point, Sheila Taramina, just looking a little bit tired.
Well, Taramina has spent the last year living in Florida, dealing with the humidity. She's had the heat training. She's a very tough athlete, and I can tell you she would not have allowed Barb Lindquist to get away if she had anything in her, so she must really, really be suffering. Looking back now, you can see Laura Reback coming off the bike almost 5 minutes down. I really have to give her a lot of credit because she knows her race is over. She doesn't stand a chance. It would have been easy to drop out. She's a very classy woman, and I'm sure she's going to go out there and give everything she can on the run course. Try to use it as a great training day because she's got several more opportunities to try to make the U.S. team for Athens. Today certainly is not going to be her day.
Well, certainly not, but as you say, Barry, she's a great runner and a classy athlete. She's going to finish this race anyway. Here we see running third and fourth, Susan Williams and Liz Blatchford, and they just got a glimpse of who they're chasing down. Barb Lindquist from the USA. She struggled, did not make the team back in 2000. She is the most determined woman in the field, and she desperately wants that spot this year. You see Barb Lindquist and Sheila Taramina clearly in the lead, but what's of note is the slow bike time, 1:09:13, and that is symbolic of just how difficult this bike course in Honolulu is.
Well, only Liz Blatchford and Susan Williams able to go anywhere near Barb Lindquist. Here's an athlete who didn't get to finish today. She came in with the flu, Maxine Sear, who won the World Cup race in Ishigaki just a week ago, now on the sidelines. And international travel so hard on your body.
If you are willing to defy the odds.
Our group of 5 now on the run. Jessie Stenzel in there, Kelly Cook, Evelyn Williamson from New Zealand, the Olympic champion Bridget McMahon, and Laura Reback. Right now in second place and really trying to hang on, Sheila Taramina, she's going to have to make her move right away because Barb Lindquist is well up the road and starting to move very well. And Susan Williams and Liz Blatchford now making their move on Sheila Taramina.
Well, Sheila looks to be running backwards at this point. Susan Williams running very, very well. Liz Blatchford also, but also running well, probably the best in the field so far. Barb Lindquist, she didn't used to be the best runner out there, but she looks very compact. Her running style is so improved, starting to lap some other athletes out there on the course, in fact. So Lindquist looks to be unstoppable at this point. One of the other athletes well down the field, Courtney Benningson, just running into frame. And here we see Williams and Blatchford catching Taramina.
Well, huge crowds, and what a fantastic job the Honolulu organizing crew have done. A short time to put this race together. They have done a brilliant job. And when you shut down the streets, the roads, and the waterfront of a major international city, you know you've got to have some cooperation by the local government. They've done a fantastic job.
Certainly the city of Honolulu and the Hawaii Tourism Authority both actively involved in this race. Thousands of tourists in Honolulu at any one time, all of them having to put up with the race being there and a ready-made audience. In fact, you see all of the tourists lining this course. It's a huge crowd out for the race today. Sheila Taramina, though, not having her day. She's just fallen back to fourth. And Williams having a brilliant run. Liz Blatchford, though, just sitting in there on her shoulder. On the run, Barb Lindquist looked unstoppable and very much in control of the race at the head of the women's field. While behind her, the only two women looking to mount a challenge were Susan Williams and Liz Blatchford, who had worked together since the bike portion of the race. Behind them, early co-leader Sheila Taramina was beginning to drop off the pace as the heat of the day took its toll on all the competitors.
Barb Lindquist so close to the finishing line now. How many times has she been there and been so close and missed those teams? Twice as a swimmer. A 400 IMer, she just missed the Olympic Games. The arms up now. She missed the 2000 Sydney Olympic Games team, and now with less than 200 meters from the finishing line, the 34-year-old from Jackson Hole, Wyoming, is going to become the first American woman to secure a spot for Athens and Team USA. She's looking to the sky, and it has been a journey that has taken her almost 20 years. Onto the carpet, this time showing how tough this course is. About 2 hours, generally the winning time, 2:07:19, and she has secured her spot. She cannot believe it. What a long journey for Barb Lindquist. And coming in from Australia, Liz Blatchford, going to be the silver medalist, and just behind an unbelievable performance by Susan Williams as she crosses in 2 hours, 7:36.
Well, Susan Williams had a remarkable race today, but Barb Lindquist giving her teammate a hug has to be the most relieved woman out there. You see her, she still has a spring in her stride after that very difficult race. Looking there at Barb's splits, the thing to note, how difficult this course is, 2023 for the swim, very slow for Barb, a slow bike, but a consistent run did it for her today.
Well, this was Barb Lindquist kind of course. A tough, choppy swim, a hilly bike course, and a tough run. Sheila Taramina coming in fourth, going to be the third American across the line. Twice she's been to the Olympic Games, once in swimming where she got a gold medal, 96 relay team, 2000 she was there for triathlon. And looking over, you can see Lauren and Barb Lindquist celebrating, and Sheila Taramina giving them a big hug. She knows how much this journey has meant to both of them.
Well, that is certainly the sign of class of Sheila Taramina. She's congratulating her teammate despite not having a great race here today. But Barb Lindquist, certainly the athlete of the hour. She wins that USA team spot for Athens with her finish today. Liz Blatchford from Australia showing us she's still on form after a great season last year. Also with a great race, Brigitte McMahon, the Olympic champion. She'll be looking forward to defending in Athens, but she'll be facing Barb Lindquist when she does.
I tell you, I've had this awesome piece all week long. I just can't believe it that I made it. I mean, it's almost like I was running and I knew it was going to happen, and that doesn't happen very, very rarely. So I'm so psyched to represent the U.S. Everything's been just going like clockwork. I mean, swim, bike, and run, and I just feel really smart and I feel really strong, and I'm just so excited.
So with the women's race now over, we turn our attention to the men's event, where Sydney Olympic champion Simon Whitfield will lead the international charge.